Okay, we are looking at Sefer Ha-Aggadah, page 35 of the first volume, and this time it's about the encounter of Yaakov with Rachel. So we know when we look at the Torah, Torah says, "V'nei Rachel bito ba'a im matzon." Just a side note, where you realize when this encounter happens that the shepherds of Aram Naharaim, of Haran, are very rude, because Yaakov engages them in conversation. He says, Shalom lachem, who are you, and this, and they answer with one word. He says, how are you doing? Shalom. Hayda'atem et Lavan ben Betuel, do you know Lavan, the son of Betuel? Yada'nu, yeah. So it goes on. Anyway, then he sees Rachel coming, and the Torah tells us that when Yaakov saw Rachel, he went over to the well. The well was covered with a big rock, and he moved it by himself. Previously, he asked the shepherds, why don't you give water to the flocks and go graze, Ardayim Gadol, which shows his integrity, because he was a shepherd also, and he felt that the shepherds are wasting their master's time because they are employees, and instead of taking care of the flocks, they're just sitting there doing nothing, not taking care of their flocks. So he said, you should give them water first and then go graze. And they said, we cannot remove the stone until all the flocks come, and then we'll remove the stone. So there are two ways to understand this. Either that the rock was really a heavy rock, and they couldn't move it on their own, or that there was an agreement between the shepherds that you don't access the water by yourself unless everybody's there. Which makes sense because this is the way, water was always a very, very expensive, precious resource. So people had to make sure that until today, the water all over the world is a resource that people go to war for. But the answer could be actually a combination of both. Because they wanted to make sure that no one takes water without the other people being present, they put a heavy enough boulder on top of the well that you need at least 4 or 5 people, because there were only 3. So 3 were not enough. You needed 4 or 5 people to remove it. Now, but when Yaakov saw Rachel, it says, "Vayigash Yaakov vayagel et ha'even me'al pi ha'be'er." Yaakov rolled the stone from on top of the well. So literally means vayagel. He rolled it over. He didn't lift it, but rolled over. But the Midrash says, "Amar Rabbi Yochanan, kazeh shu ma'avir pekak me'al pi tzelohit." The way you pop open a bottle. Tzlohit in the Midrash is not tzalahat, it's a bottle. So you pop open the bottle, that's how easy it was for Yaakov. Then the Mefarshim, there are 2 ways to see it. One, that according to the image that we have of Yaakov is a weakling, is this guy who sits and studies Torah all day. So he was given supernatural power at that moment to do it, or that he was filled with adrenaline because of his love for Rachel and his excitement. But al pi pshat, as we mentioned earlier, Yaakov and Esav were twins, so probably were of the same build. And Yaakov also was a man of the field, only not a hunter like Esav, but a shepherd. So he also had physical power. So obviously he had more physical power than those shepherds, and with the added excitement and adrenaline, he was able to do it. Now the Midrash is really concerned with the fact that Yaakov kissed Rachel, but this is a result of rabbinic literature. Meaning, in the Torah, in the Torah, when Torah speaks about closeness between people or intimacy between people, the only thing that the Torah forbids in terms of incestuous relationships between those, a man and a married woman, a man and his female relatives, or even a man and his wife who is nida at the time, it only speaks about sexual relationships. Ish el kol she'er besaro lo tikrevu legalot irva. You will not come close to another relative who was not allowed, who was forbidden to you to expose their nakedness. So it speaks about sexual relationship. Later on in the Gemara extended it. It says, Kol kurva shel chiba asur. Anything that shows affection is forbidden. But here you have a problem because it would make sense to some people that intimate touch, except from relationship, like a handshake or a hug or a kiss, some people would understand that it would apply between men and married women who are not their wives. Some would even understand that it would apply between a man and his wife when she's nidah. But it's hard to understand that when he speaks about relatives. Because one, of course, we know relationship with relatives like mothers, sisters, etc., are considered incestuous relationships. But to say that you cannot hug or kiss is a problem. But if you will say that is allowed, it's okay, then you would ask why you make this distinction for these type of forbidden relationships and not the rest. So this has always been a contentious issue. The Rambam was very strict on that. Rambam said that one is not allowed to touch or kiss or hug any of the relatives who fall under the category of incest, including his mother and sisters. Rambam was very strict on that. And there are different levels of stringency in different communities. But everyone, or I may say most of the commentators, are bothered by the fact that if we assume that a man is not supposed to kiss or hug an unmarried woman or a married woman, right? Then how did Yaakov approach and kiss Rachel? Now, it would not be a problem for those who say that between relatives it's okay because it's called neshika shel kurva. They're cousins. They haven't seen each other for a long time, so that's what they do. So, but the Midrash looks at it and says, "Vayishak Yaakov leRachel kol neshika shel tiflut." All kisses are tiflut. Tafel means vain, with no substance, and they mean everything that has to do with love or romantic. They call it tafel. They call it vain. That in itself already tells us that this could come from someone who was not very romantic. To call it tafel means tasteless or vain.
In Moroccan, it's psala.
Psala, right? Exactly, that's the word, psala. Like someone who sees the two people kissing each other and say, psala. Like, this is no, tasteless. So why? They love each other. They show affection to each other. It's very, very important. Culturally, we know it's different. There are certain cultures where closeness and intimacy are very important, and there are cultures where it is not. America, for example,
Who says
the Midrash, the Shikashim Tiflut. And then they go to explain whether this was tafel or not.
Because they didn't know what French kiss at the time.
Yeah, no, they're not talking about French kiss. It doesn't matter if it's on the cheek or even on the lips. It's not. It's really the concept of how close people, how intimate people feel comfortable with each other. We could say that in European culture, physical intimacy is much more reserved and regarded than it is in the Middle East or in Africa and other more traditional societies. So, for example, in America in the 50s, it was promoted that the idea was promoted that even parents should not touch their children too much. They were told if you hug or kiss or lift your children, you carry your children when they cry, you're going to spoil them. If you look at traditional societies, mothers would breastfeed their kids whenever they're hungry. They carry them, they will hug them and lift them. Now we have, the what do you call the snuggly, the way you carry the baby.
Bjorn, the baby.
Yeah, Bjorn, the baby, right. It came in.
He's against hugging and kissing.
Yeah.
In America, it's too much.
Yes. So yeah, each culture has its own. But later on, luckily for the future generations of children, the psychologists realize that it's disastrous. That it's not good. And today, I think most parents would attest to that.
Because you don't let the guy develop.
Yeah, it's right. It's extremely. It's important for the development of the brain, the development of
independence.
Right, no, but even at the young age, before the kid is independent, the development of trust and sense of security and safety and closeness, this by touching, because our tactile senses they need this feed that comes in. It's like news feed. We have our ears, our eyes. This is something that they need to get at all times, and special caretakers learn how to touch people.
And babies.
Yes. And this is, when you want to comfort someone who's that, you touch, you give a hand. It's very, very important. But again, it's a cultural thing that people don't understand how it functions for different societies. Anyway, the Midrash says, Kol neshika shel tiflut, chutz mishalosh. There are 3 kisses which are okay, which are fine. Neshika shel gdula, neshika shel parakim, neshika shel prishut. So, neshika shel gdula is to show that someone is important, as an honor, you kiss him or her. So, but all examples here are between either men and men or 2 women. ויקח שמואל את פח השמן ויצוק על ראשו וישקהו. When Shemuel anointed Shaul as king, it says that he took the oil jar and he anointed him, meaning he with his finger or directly from the jar, he put some oil on his head and then he kissed him. So this is called neshika shel gdula. This you could say that between dignitaries or it's hard to say when people come into the synagogue and kiss each other. Is it out of its honor, respect, closeness? They don't really fall into this category. Then there's neshika shel pakim, that when you meet someone after a long time you haven't seen them, and they bring this example. Vayelech vayivgeshu be'ara Elohim vayishaklo. Aharon met Moshe at the mountain of God, which is Har Sinai or Horeb, and he kissed him, right? Neshika shel prishut, and then there's the neshika, the kiss of farewell. When you say goodbye to someone, Vatishak Orpa lahamota verut davka ba. When Orpa said goodbye to Naomi, she kissed her and she left. It's interesting that all the examples that the Midrash brings are between people of the same gender, because they didn't want to get into the idea of romantic relationships. They speak about saying goodbye, meeting again, honor, respect. It's as if this was this mentality, and we really find it very, very strongly in the Talmud from the 3rd century on. Maybe because of Persian influence, that they were the Zoroastrian and others were more rigid in their mentality. Many of them, we have the Aryan culture coming and influencing it, so they wanted to limit it. Or maybe it was a counter-reaction to the Greek culture where things were so much in the open and so exposed, so they became very strict on that, and everything that has to do with sexuality, with closeness, with intimacy. There are a lot of restrictions on even relationship between a husband and a wife, even when she's not nida. They have there's a long list of restrictions on that. They didn't feel comfortable with this whole issue of showing intimacy. And again, another issue is the obsession with what they call hirhurim, that if one might end up thinking about women a day and night. It's if you don't think that it's forbidden in an exaggerated way, you're not going to be obsessed with it. The more you put prohibitions on it, the more it becomes a problem. And you see it in Orthodox schools where there is a separation of the genders, a complete separation. To the extent the Orthodox world is getting worse and worse in that regard, because they start with separate schools. There is a benefit for non-co-ed school up to a certain age. Actually, kids benefit more from it until they turn 7, because until the age of 7, girls just zoom ahead. With everything that has to do with cognitive learning and language, that the boys feel like they're idiots. And it's documented. The boys feel like, I don't know what's going on, I can't sit still. Meanwhile, the girls are running ahead. So, but in terms of gender, that's completely separate of gender. In a Bet Yaakov school, for example, that my daughter attended, they at a certain point wouldn't even speak of boys. They call them the other gender. So when they try to warn the girls against, God forbid, communicating with boys or having friends, they say, if you go to a supermarket, for example, and at the register there's someone from the other gender, it's better for you to wait to find someone of your gender. Like, they'll say, a boy, like, no, God forbid, you say boy or girl. Then the next level of taking this, stupidity, is that in publications you don't show women. Remember a couple of years ago when after Osama bin Laden was killed, there was a picture of the whole cabinet, and it was published in religious newspapers in America and in Israel, and they just did one little thing. They photoshopped Hillary Clinton from it, not because they don't like her, but because she's a woman. So, but it was so blatant. It's not like when you don't publish a picture of a woman. It's in the front page of the news, and you say, where someone is missing. That was, and then you take it to the next level. We start with not publishing pictures of women. Then you don't publish pictures of girls. That is already on the border of perversion, because you turn the girls into a sexual object. So I saw a magazine for kids, where the parents of Orthodox kids, where the parents are asked to send pictures of their children. So, very interesting. You see the names of the children, you see their pictures, but if it's the name of a girl, there's no picture of the girl. There's a pot of flowers, and for me the worst picture was a picture of a brother and sister. So they showed the brother and not the sister. And so the brother is sitting with a blue teddy bear, and next to him there's a pink teddy bear, and underneath it says something like, let's say, Aaron and Masha, whatever. So this is terrible on so many levels, because one, it makes the girl into a sexual object, and then it also turns the men into perverts and predators. It is very, very dangerous. But also, in the mind of the girl, she gets the magazine and shares it with her brother. She doesn't exist. It's not a simple thing. They erase her identity. The girl becomes worthless. It's very, very dangerous. If you want to hear there's a next level. It's like it just keeps getting worse. Someone sent me the picture of Kiddush for Shabbat. Like you have the Birkat Hamazon printed. So someone printed it, and they decided to also add an illustration to make it nice. So what do you see in the illustration? A man and boys. It's Friday night. It's a picture of a family, not a picture, a drawing, not even a picture, of a family around the Shabbat table. The woman is not there. The girls are not there. Of course, they're in the kitchen making the food and maybe washing the dishes, right? But they don't deserve to be in this is really an example of how something that started with, concern about, romanticism or intimacy became complete, the Midrash. So, Rabbi Tanhuma Amar, here Rabbi Tanhuma, which is, his name means to comfort, finally, gives us some consolation in the Midrash. He says, there's another kiss that you forgot to mention. You tell me that there are only 3 types of, saying farewell, meeting again, and out of honor, and all the rest are vain and tasteless. No. Rabbi Tanhuma Amar, אף נשיקה של קרבות, שנאמר וישק יעקב לרחל, שהייתה קרובתו. It's the most natural thing to do. He sees her, she's his cousin. She's cousin? Yeah. Yes, she's his cousin. Lavan is Rivka's brother. They're cousins to each other. He kisses her. It's a natural thing, which would not be done today in the Orthodox society. Cousins of different genders would not hug or kiss each other. But according to the Midrash, this is something that you do to show affection and to show closeness and intimacy. Baruch Adonai.